Welcome to the All-Star Networking Podcast. It's the show where you hear from a new expert each week on how to build an all-star network, increase business sales, grow careers, find a job, or enrich your life. Let's get it started. From the Midtown Global Market in Minneapolis, here's your host, Kathy Paper.
Thank you for joining today. Well, I'm so happy to have both of you here. And I want to have both of you introduce yourselves first. And then what I love about shows where my guests don't know each other is it always unfolds of networking and good connections.
I am Atum Azzahir, and I am a 45-year resident of this community. The community as in South Minneapolis, Midtown Global Market is what I think of as somewhat of a touch point for many people who come into Minneapolis. But I think that having been here for that many years in this area, I'm very connected to the community residents in the Powderhorn and Phillips Planning District, which is a larger than Phillips neighborhood kind of area, which I think really is more than 70 or 80,000 people when you think about the planning districts and size of them. So I know people, and my children went to school in this area. All my children are now adults and have their own children. So all of those years living here, I also am really connected to people in such a way that I was invited to become a part of the group who really started the Midtown Global Market. And the nonprofit organizations who were the owners at the time that I began was NDC, Neighborhood Development Center, LEDC, which is the Latino Economic Development Center, and ADC, African Development Center, and the Cultural Wellness Center. So the four nonprofits who are all organizers, conveners, very community as in people driven. And I think the work that we brought, because I am also the founder of the Cultural Wellness Center, and I think the thing that we brought and were recruited to participate in is always making sure that the residents of this area felt a sense of ownership of the Midtown Global Market. Because the Sears Tower, had been standing here for so long. So being here now with you and being here and seeing us having gone, the Midtown Global Market having gone through COVID and gone through George Floyd and gone through so much. It's like my life. You go through all of these major struggles and you come out on the other side as life, really has given you lots of miracles during that process of struggle. So that's who I am. I'm very happy to be here. And this is really great to be a part of a podcast.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you for being here. And I'm happy to have you be part of the podcast. Our second guest, because we are all about connecting, is Julie. Let everybody know who you are.
Okay.
What you're about.
I don't think I can top Atum. I have
Julie for a reason.
Keep that in mind. So I am a couple of things. You, Kathy, and I have known each other through my sister Mickey for a long time. But I am a writer and editor, and I am also a leader in the talent acquisition space. So I've been consulting for a long time. On Monday of next week, I start a new chapter with a company called DigiKey in Thief River Falls. So I'm excited to lead that team in talent acquisition at a time when the job market is on fire. It's a really interesting time to be in recruiting.
Nice. I
So
love that.
That's me.
That's you. But let's also, because I want to have so many things on the table about you as the author, is because that was where we worked together, was publishing your book.
Yes.
And I said to you before we started, that literally your book, and I published and helped people promote a lot of books through my career, but it was titled "Hospice is Not a Place; It's the People." It's
Yeah.
people. And I remember you had a page in your book that you said, tear this book page out and put it on the fridge because it had all the instructions of what to do during hospice. And
Oh,
all of
you
that.
are
So-
good. Yes,
so
it did
I was
have
looking
that.
forward to talking to you because as I, reach the age with aging parents or friends with aging parents too, your journey into hospice was very interesting to me.
It was such a big part of who I've been. I had been volunteering for hospice for years. And when I got into hospice, they did an interview. And they said, why do you want to be a hospice volunteer? I had 4 little children. I had a full-time job. My husband traveled. Why do you want to be a hospice volunteer? And I said, I don't know. And the woman I was talking with said to me, you'd be surprised at how often people say that. And so she let me in, let me do it. I got all the training, eventually trained my dog to come with me. So I knew a lot about hospice, but when my dad jumped into hospice, I'm 9th of 11 children in our family, no one would listen to me. My brothers, my sisters, they thought that what I had done for 10 years prior didn't really relate to their dad, my dad. And so ultimately we got through it. It was a brilliant, beautiful experience. But afterward, I wrote the book I wished I could have just handed to my brothers and my sisters. And they all contributed to it. They all helped. And an interesting thing about networking is that book, Hospice Isn't a Place, It's People, is marketed solely through word of mouth. It's on Amazon, but I don't I don't have it in a bookstore or anything. And I continue to sell a couple copies a month. It's something that when people know it's out there and they know someone's in a situation where it's useful, it's mostly my brothers and sisters who have really evangelized and said, you got to have this. It's helpful. Tear that page out. It's going to help you. And people come back and say that was helpful. So, talk about networking.
Yep.
But
again, it's on my mind because I feel like there are these stages of life where I always say I get more instructions on how to handle them when I leave Best Buy with a new TV than you get on birth or death or, COVID. We didn't get a lot of instructions about how to deal with that. And so your book has always stuck with me. So
well, nice.
I'm
glad you remember that.
When did you write it?
I wrote it in 2013.
Okay, and it's still very useful.
It's still useful to people, and I've rewritten it one time. I revised it once, but a lot of it was relevant and decent. So I just took the typos out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So you said your dad?
My dad passed. Yeah, he was in hospice just for about a month.
Okay. Yes.
But anyone who wants to know more about that, my family loves to talk about it because we did have a really interesting, good experience, and that's the kind of thing you talk about, all the miracles you've had and all the experiences you've had. It's interesting how that situation plays into things I've done since.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
We had to navigate that, and we, like Kathy, you with your parents, you have to navigate, and I think it throws different synapses together in your brain to say later, I can handle something else because I got through this.
So I'm familiar with hospice because I too worked actually in a nursing home for many years.
Did.
I did.
Okay.
And was introduced to hospice through working with the aged. But then my mother, who had breast cancer, and also my mother and father were in a car accident, and my mother survived the car accident and was in hospice for actually almost a year.
Yeah.
And it was, as you say, the experience is one that I continue to remember. How did your family deal with the ultimate end. I mean, end of life. So when you say hospice, often they think, end of life, but how did they deal with like, okay, this is it? Did hospice give them a chance to rethink that whole concept of he's gone, we're never going to see him again, and start the grieving process even before the person passes on?
I think it really forces that conversation. There were so many people when I was volunteering for hospice who were in nursing homes, like you mentioned, who didn't have that family around them. That's why we would go.
Yes.
They didn't have family. But when it's your own family, and maybe with your mom, it forces the conversation around how do we say goodbye, and what's unsaid and what isn't. He lived longer than anyone said he would. They said this is his last day, and then the next day was this is his last day, and I knew from experience maybe it wasn't, but we still behaved as if today was the last day.
Yes,
and we get 5 extra days.
Yes.
Pretty soon, we're trying to bore him to death, telling him stories.
Yes.
Poor guy.
Yes,
but
yes.
he, but it introduced, so you're sitting in a quiet place with someone who isn't very responsive. And in our case, it was a small apartment with 10 siblings and some nephews and nieces who came in and out. And that conversation happens because what else are you going to do? You're going to talk. And so we learned a lot about each other, and
yes.
we fought. we disagreed on some things, but at the end of the day, some of us left while he was still alive and said, you asked about the very end.
Yes.
Because we were supposed to be on shifts, and now we're all exhausted. It's like, okay, it's not my shift, I'm going to leave. And 3 of us left, and we all said, I've said everything. I'm okay, and he's okay if I leave. He doesn't need me to take him to the next place. And that turned out to be the right decision at the end. And the people who needed to see him go were the ones who were there. So, did you have that experience with your mom?
Yes. Yes, I did. But I was thinking of, there were just 2 children, myself and my brother, who's, he also transitioned now, but he was, my brother lived in Milwaukee, and we lived here, so they had to travel, to come. And so when they were here on the weekends or whenever, was their time with my mother. And so you all did it in shifts, and we did it based on where their visitation, how often they could come. And so when he was here, that was, it gave me a chance to take time off. Because like the medical providers said, this is it. And so they often say,
but they don't know.
They don't know, because I want to know, when do you say, people use the word hospice, and I'm like, sometimes I've heard it, 5 days, and sometimes I've heard it's 9 months. So I don't know.
I actually, it was over a year. But the thing about it is that what I learned is that there are other people, because we were over at Fairview.
Oh, I was with Fairview. Maybe I met your mom. I don't know.
It was 1995. I can tell you exactly
I was there.
when it was.
Yeah.
And
What do you mean, the other people, Atum?
People who also had their relatives, the patients and their families who were also in hospice.
Oh, you were in a hospice setting?
Yes.
Oh, lots of people just do it at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I think more people probably do it at home than when hospice first started. Lots of people now do it at home. But I think the most important thing was that other families struggled. And my mother has a tendency, even on her deathbed, to connect with people. So when we visited, we were visiting everyone's family.
Oh.
And lots of conversation and, really getting to know people. And so that was kind of a lasting experience for her, the care providers, us, so it really turned out to be a very
You were there to
nice
support
experience.
each other.
We became the supporters of other people.
And is that how your mom wanted it to be?
That's how she is. I mean, her personality was such that she would just make people happy and connect. And so lots of people spent time with her. And then she was a great conversationalist. You know,
she was that magnet to other people.
She was. Under that kind of I want the shadow over her that this is the end of her life. It almost was as if she took the time to make that time, whatever amount of time it was going to be, a very good time for. It sounds like you all did too.
Well, the idea within hospice, so hospice happens when you stop trying to treat your illness. You say there's nothing more that we can do, but there's always more you can do in terms of living your life. And so at Fairview, at least, the philosophy was we're living until we're not living. So I would go do scrapbooking with people or take them on walks. I mean,
yes.
Just because you know you're not going to get better doesn't mean you have to stop being who you are. And your mom, what a great experience. She got to continue to care for
that's
people.
Correct.
And that's what she would have wanted to do. And so, I didn't know we were going to talk about hospice
but
today.
this is where what you said, Atum, too, and your mom sounds lovely, of the connection. What I think has been fascinating, and why I say I remember your book, is, again, at certain stages of your life, more than ever, you want community, and you said your book is all by referral of your siblings, knowing there's that moment when somebody says,
I need something.
And then they need something. I mean, to me, yes, we're talking about this on a networking podcast, because all the more places where you network and connect, at least for me, I mean,
and
maybe it's too long a segment, Matt, because you went and got a coffee and a couple glasses of water, but I can't say enough. To me, I think that's why connection happens.
Connection was so important at that point in my life with my family, and connecting about it later now is, I get excited about it, because I don't get excited that people are in a hospice situation. That's no fun, I don't wish that on anyone, but I also did hospice work with children, and that was especially invigorating, because with children, you can continue to be treated. You don't have to stop taking medications or whatever you're doing. And we're just there to make those last days, weeks, months full, and to help with siblings and things like that. But having a network of people who have either been through it before, or, even hearing your story about someone in, your mom in the hospice center, connecting with other people. I just think having that, not everybody wants community around them at the end of their lives, but if you do, it is magical to have someone say, I get it. I know I've been there. I know each time it's different, but I get it.
But I can, this brings up for me the idea that right now there are so many people who, most recently, I saw a book by the Surgeon General that's called, I think it's called Togetherness, or Getting Together, or something like that. But the idea is that people are so lonely, and so following COVID, people are very, very lonely. The Cultural Wellness Center speaks to this idea of individualism. So when you talked about community, one of the ways that we think about belonging and connecting is that much, much more research now proves that sadness and aloneness and this idea that we don't belong, that there is no place for us, that we're not worthy of love, and all of those things are coming up really strong right now. So hospice is not just about death. I mean, it really is about the idea that the length of life possibly extends beyond the physical presence of a person. So what else is there? There are memories, there are relationships.
Oh, there's
There are
impact.
these experiences that if we can cultivate and harvest those experiences, it really does connect to your point about networking. So it isn't about just wanting to have someone around you at the end of life. It is really the fact that our living has to do with living a good life, has to do with, or the research is being done on happiness. And who are the people who rate the highest on this scale of happiness? It's people who are connected, people who are in close, intimate, long-standing relationships. So if we can in our lives, begin to build and connect and get to know people and go outside of our kind of comfort zone of being alone, not only would our life be better, but so will our death. So, that's how I connect this, is that I think I would say back to the Midtown Global Market. I think the market is really a place, a space. It's like not just a physical space. The market is also a place and space that really is about the kind of connecting that happens from around the world. So people in this area, we have the most diverse. I would say that this part of Phillips and Powderhorn planning districts, not just the neighborhood, have a very, very large number of people from around the world. Probably the most, I would say, diverse areas in Minneapolis in terms of languages that are spoken. I don't even remember the numbers anymore, but a very large percent of the people speak, 3, 4, 5 different languages. In the schools that are right around here, there are many, many languages spoken under one roof in the schools. So I think that networking concept and the connectivity concept and the belonging and all of those things that we're talking about, really relational kind of, everyone is focusing right now on the not transactional, but relational connecting with you on a not just transactive level, but on a soul level, on an intimate, having the capacity to empathize and to so forth. So that's how I make the connection between hospice, what we're doing now, the concept of living and dying, happiness, and really getting over ourselves.
Wow, that you have packed it all in. I like that.
We just have to get over ourselves, and get into what other people are living and doing.
But when you're deeply lonely or alone or isolated, even in a crowd, it's sort of hard to reach out and build that network. And if you're not you or your mom, I'm telling you, I'm a shy person. Nobody believes it, but deep down I am. Sometimes it's hard to know, what if I reach out, what might happen back? What might that response
I
be?
would encourage you to think about what what experience shaped your thoughts about that.
Yeah. So
this is not therapy either.
No. But I think it's something people need to think about as far as networking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a shy person, how have you figured out how to connect? Because as you were talking, I imagine I'm at Midtown Global Market and I come for lunch and maybe I'm lonely and I come by myself or I'm new to town and I have my lunch tray, and you can go sit in the common area and, okay, by the way, Atum has waved at 7 people, and you have waved at 2. So I love this.
Yeah.
This is where connection and community
It's a neat
is great.
place, yeah.
Anyway, so how do you, as the shy person, how do you take that first step? What's your framework? How do you help somebody that's listening go, okay, I want to join? Do you join something? Do you show up? What do you do?
I think show up is a big deal. I think show up first. Yeah, get out come to the market, for example. Go get online if you're on LinkedIn, right? And show up, ask a question, make a comment, smile at somebody, just do it. And the response so often is positive. Atum and I didn't know each other, but she held the door for me, so I said hi when I came through. It's easy to do that. And I thought, oh, that's a nice person, but I didn't know we'd get to know each other. That was fun. You don't know. The world is...
it always works
It
out.
always works out. But I work with I'm in recruiting. So I'm in talent acquisition. So my job is to speak to strangers day in and day out and get personal information about them and then use that to help them. So so I have to do it. But what I talk to young people about a lot is people want to help other people. Take your mom, for example. People want to help other people. And so it's okay to ask someone for an idea or an opinion or for help or even just to throw it out there, show up and say, I'd like to know more about what you do. Maybe for a young person choosing a career, coming out of school or whatever it is. Just ask people about themselves. People like to talk about themselves. We know that. And that's a nice way into developing relationships with people and networking and connecting.
But it has to be stated though that it is not easy. The market has to work hard for all of us to get to know one another. Yes. And to, after all these years, 17 years, we're not any further ahead than many of the other locations that are supposed to be for all people from various backgrounds. So getting to know one another is very difficult. Yes. The residents of this community are going, I think, now to have another chance at making this their destination for understanding and interacting and learning from other cultures. I think that we now, it's popular to talk about diversity and inclusion. And I've lived many years, so I know this is another kind of
Does it feel like a wave?
It feels like a wave. But I think there's something different now. Because of Brother George Floyd's murder, because of the uprising, because of the struggle that everyone has actually had to participate in, because of the business owners here are not here just to make money. Business owners here are, in many, many cases, carrying out their life purpose. Many of the business owners are bringing their own national, ethnic, and cultural peoplehood into this market. And food is in many, many cases, a symbol of who they are, and who their family is, and who their people are. So I think it's a very difficult task to be under one roof from all of these different backgrounds and walks of life and make it work. So I would say to you that, because I was here for a long time, I would say to you that, Matt, you have brought to it a kind of energy and receptivity and, yes, talent at making it easier for people through you to connect. So the events that you have, the kind of conversation and messaging that's happening now that say, look what's happening here. I think people are starting to have a curiosity about, oh, so they're not dead. Speaking of death.
Who's not dead? The market?
The market is not dead, you know.
Oh no, it's
business
alive and
owner-
well.
It's alive and well. It is not dead.
It
The
is
business
more than
owners,
alive.
there are several business owners who have been here for the entire 17 years. They have been here through it all. Many of them were actually protecting. They were the security system during the uprising, who really were around on the outside. They were the ones. So I think that this market is, once again, not a place as in a physical place, but it is a space and a place, I think, theoretical and philosophical place where people can connect, or people can come and just sit and watch. I mean, if you're a shy person, you don't have to do anything, but you do really have to get out of your house and come. And I think being together, we will learn how to make eye contact, you know, and next thing you know, you'll be dancing together. Next thing you know, you'll be eating together. You know what I mean? So I think it's a very, very hard job, though. It's very hard. So I think the years of working to make it last and now working to see it rise again, it's a lot of work. So I'm very happy for the podcast. We might reach people who would not come here otherwise.
Right.
We might connect with people who would not know that there are actually people here who would receive them openly and warmly and welcomely.
And the food is so good.
And the food is good. That's
and
right.
The shopping.
And the
and
shopping.
the events. And the events
Yes.
place.
Yes.
And the piano playing at the beginning of the show
I
is a
know.
little... We'll see whether Matt can edit that piano playing out. But there is a piano that anyone can play it.
And that and that's a pianist who is just learning. Could you
Yes,
tell
I
in the
could
background?
tell, yes. I didn't know what to do. Matt was getting his coffee. So here's a specific question about the network and finding time for building a network or making connections. Is how do you find time to do it? Are you intentional about saying, I want to connect with new people each week, or what's your lens on your network?
To say, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then be yourself in a way that isn't just networking to get something, but more around what can I learn from you and what can you learn from me? How can we help each other, and how can we dance? You know, how do we do that?
I don't think of networking. I think of relationships, and I don't think of going to meet people. I think, you know, for the first time, or I am very, very actively, my core is to be active. So I probably spend more time thinking about how I'm not going to be with people than how I'm going to be with people, because on a day-by-day basis, you know, it's a part of my culture to be in family and community nor family is biological. We live, you know, we eat together, we do many things together. So I really think the market has some of that cultural gathering kind of spirit where people give and share. And so that's really at the core of, for me. So when you said networking, I was thinking about, as I said to you, you know, kind of what is networking. Sounds very quote unquote professionalized. It sounds academic. It sounds like intentional but transactional. So I really do think it's about relationships. Living is about relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of my personality, and it's not just my individual personality, but collectively, when you have lots of African people in the market, I'll bet you the level of interaction goes up 50% immediately, or the various other cultural backgrounds, you know. they very seldom come in the market alone. Got a family member, a friend. People come here to meet, to have a safe place, to be collective. You remember that many people have not been able to be in group without someone thinking they were about to start a riot or something. So many people are very happy to have a space, a location where they can really be together. I also think that the questions around socioeconomic, like do we network just with people who have something? We are going to be together. Like it or like it not. We're not going to be able to sit in our own homes and not connect in the future. It's just not going to happen. So I'm very happy that networking is becoming more than professionalizing, looking for resources, becoming kind of who do I know that will help me do what I have to do, versus who do I know who have the same experiences that I do, who can share with me how they got through this particular period or through this particular issue that I'm struggling with right now. And I think that happens quite a bit here.
It does.
So I think also, to be honest, I think it's a cultural practice that now is going to become the supreme way to be with people.
Right. But there's something about the connection or
Yep.
building the community, and to that point of the belonging. Both of you are all stars at building it, and I knew there would be a lot of synergy between each other. I guess I will say thank you, both of you, so much for being guests today on the All-Star Networking Show. One final...
I think we didn't know where this conversation was going to go today, and sometimes that happens with networking, but it reminds me of a poem by David White, and the two lines that come to mind are, put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. And I think that sums up networking for me. Just come on in and let's see what happens. So thank you. Thanks for including me in your conversation. Appreciate it,
awesome.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the All-Star Networking Podcast with Kathy Paper. To learn more about strategic networking and making impactful connections, visit rockpaperstar.com. Please join us in supporting the Midtown Global Market as a vital community resource that supports small business, cultural diversity, and free or low-cost programming. Reach us at friendsofglobalmarket.org.